Well, our folks out at the Combine have had a bunch of conversations today with head coaches and general managers, including a one-on-one with Bears general manager Ryan Poles, who holds all the cards this offseason, and maybe that first domino as well. Waiting for that one to drop as it pertains to Justin Fields and then that #1 overall pick. Let's take you out to the Combine in Indy once again. Our Ryan Wilson and Rick Spielman are there. Fellas, what did you make of what Poles said today about Fields, including that he wanted to do right by him, meaning wanted to do right by Justin Fields, who they might be saying goodbye to, Ryan?
I'll ask Rick, Chris, what that means in GM speak, because I think it means nothing, really.
No,
and we'll just wait until you get a phone call as we get closer to the draft on April 25th. So translate what Ryan Poles was saying to the layperson.
Yeah, well, in our GM handbook 101 that we learn, and takes plenty of years to get that under control and understand what you were saying.
Yeah.
What he's saying is if we trade him, we're going to trade him because we wanted to do right by him because he's such a great kid. Or if we keep him, we're going to give him a contract extension and we want to do right by him. So you can't lose either way, Chris. You're either trading him or you're keeping him, and you're going to do right by him. Either way you go.
And a bit of a similar situation in Denver with Russell Wilson. We think it's going to end up with the Broncos trading him away. Sean Payton saying today that he expects a decision on that within the next couple of weeks. Rick, what do you expect that decision to be?
I don't expect Ryan Wilson. Yeah, he's here. He's going to be here in the next couple of weeks.
I might be the Broncos quarterback before Russ.
Russell Wilson, I don't think he'll be the Denver Broncos quarterback next year. I think they got a tough decision to make. I think they're willing to eat the cap that they have to eat if they do release him. They could try to trade him, but that's still all that acceleration from his contract coming into this year. If they do cut him, it could be a post-June 1st cut, which can help with the cap, but they have a tough decision to make and a tough business decision. And talking to some people here at the Combine, last year they had to eat all of Tom Brady's contract with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They went out and got a bargain for Baker Mayfield. He had an outstanding year, and they were still able to win the division and get into the playoffs.
It's interesting, Rick, because unlike Justin Fields, who's still on his rookie deal and has potential to reach a higher ceiling as a franchise quarterback, it feels like with Russ, you know what you're getting. And if Sean Payton can't get the most out of you, who can? And I'll just ask you this. If you were to trade Russ Wilson, can you get more than a 5th or 6th round pick for him?
No, you're going to get a late round pick for him because of that contract, but you're also going to have to work out a business decision on will Denver eat some of that contract so it makes him tradable.
Continuing to talk about players who could be on the move in free agency and whatnot. The Chiefs have a couple of free agents inside Pete Prisco's top 10 and his top 100 free agents, which you can find at CBSSports.com. L'Jarius Sneed, one of those guys. Rick, tell us what the Chiefs meant today when the report came out that they're willing to play ball here and maybe tag Sneed and then trade him.
Yeah, we had Andy Reid on a set today, and we asked him because they have that franchise tag. L'Jarius Sneed has turned out to be one of the top corners, not only in NFL, but will be one of the top corners besides Jalen Johnson in Chicago to go out and get a big contract in the open market if they get there. If you tag him, then that still gives a team the ability to trade him and maybe pick up more than they would if they tagged him. And I don't believe anyone's going to match the contract that they have on a franchise tag. So they have even a tougher decision to make because Chris Jones, if you tag him, it's going to be $32 million based on his contract last year. But he's the engine that makes that defense go. So in my opinion, they can let Sneed go. And if they have to trade or if they have to tag Chris Jones, that would be the way to go, in my opinion, and try to get a long-term extension. He's just too important to that defense.
So Chris Jones is more valuable in that defense than L'Jarius Sneed?
Well, look at what they've done in the draft. Look at all the corners that they have drafted, and Brett Veach has done a phenomenal job rebuilding that secondary.
Trent McDuffie and even Jalen Watson did a lot of playing earlier last season, his rookie season.
Let's go to the team that got the 1 seed in the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens. They are not going to let Justin Madubuike hit free agency in a couple of weeks. They are reportedly going to tag him, and if they can't reach a long-term deal, they'll use that tag. But hopefully, I think the team thinks that they can get a long-term deal done. But Ryan, they've got 5 other free agents ranked inside Pete's top 60. Should they use that tag on somebody else if they don't use it on Matabike?
That's the question. They lost their defensive coordinator to Seattle, Mike McDonald, who did amazing things, and you know Mike McDonald pretty well. The thing with Matabike for me, and before I get to Chris's answer, is it felt like you had to let him grow into that role because he was extremely athletic coming out of college, twitched up. I see a little bit of Byron Murphy, who we'll talk a lot about this week in him, and he finally hit his stride in the contract year, which is great timing for him. But, Rick, what are you doing in that defense that was dominant at times and helped out the offense when it struggled early in the season if you're trying to fill in the rest of the pieces about who you're bringing back?
Yeah, well, you're going to have to shop the secondary market, and you're going to have to hit in a draft. And Eric DeCosta has been phenomenal drafting, but you cannot let these interior pass rushers go. They're too hard to find. They're too hard to find in a draft. And when you do hit on one, like we talked about earlier with Chris Jones, like Matabike, those guys, if they get on the open market, they're going to get a huge contract, especially him coming off his rookie deal. I don't see him going anywhere. A lot of the contract talks are going on right now. Agents and GMs are trying to work through some deals, at least setting up some parameters. They'll still have a couple weeks to go before the new league year begins, and when I think March 5th is when the franchise tag ends. So they'll work really hard to try to get a long-term deal in place.
Ravens obviously in win-now mode. Let's go to a team that has someone available for a tag but might not be in a win-now place. The Carolina Panthers appear to be in a rebuild, though they're going into their second year with Bryce Young at quarterback. Brian Burns, 3 different tags available to the Panthers. Rick, do any of those make sense to you?
No, they don't, because I don't understand why they didn't get a long-term extension done with him last year. They had an opportunity to do that, probably at a cheaper rate than they're going to have to do this year, especially with the way the cap number has gone up. So I thought they made a mistake by not extending him last year. He wasn't looking to be the highest paid pass rusher, but they could have got one of the top 5 or 6 pass rushers. They could have got a bargain deal for him, because I think another young guy that can get after the quarterback, now they're in a predicament, and if they can't get a long-term deal done, I think they have to franchise him, and they have the room to do it.
A team without a first-round pick because of the Bryce Young trade. And also there were reports several years ago that the Rams wanted to give up at least 2 first-round picks for Brian Burns. They didn't do that, so it's not clear what the math is going to be. We'll talk in a moment about how they're turning the corner with their new head coach and their quarterback, but the Brian Burns situation is one that's still hard to explain, Chris, as we sit here. And he's
head-scratching, Chris. Very head-scratching.
Head-scratching. Hair, no hair, head-scratching.
Let's move on to the running backs. We had several get tagged last season, some big-name running backs out there. And again, added a couple more big-name running backs like Austin Eckler this season. But as reports surface that those 5 potential free agent running backs are going to hit the open market, the Giants say they haven't ruled out tagging Saquon Barkley. Better to tag him or let him walk, Rick?
I think it's better to let all these guys walk. If you look at their season last year, all of them had a down year compared to what they've been in previously. Eckler didn't have a great year. Pollard didn't have a great year. He was coming off the tag. Barkley was injured again during the season. So, in my opinion, let these guys walk. Use your finances and your resources elsewhere.
There won't be a first-round pick in the running backs class this year unless something crazy happens. Was Bijan a reach in retrospect after year 1 for the Atlanta?
Absolutely not.
You're okay with that still, though?
Because he's more than just a running back.
Okay.
He's a playmaker, just like Gibbs. We talked about this last year. Now, there's no running backs coming out in this year's draft of that caliber, but those guys make a difference because they score touchdowns many different ways just besides running the football.
Okay.
Let's get to Rick's old team, the Minnesota Vikings. A lot of decisions to make. Kirk Cousins becoming a free agent and Justin Jefferson heading into the last year of his deal. The Vikings today saying they aren't even considering trading him. Should they, Rick?
No, I think, I got to be careful on this one. But I would say that you extend Justin Fields, look for the range of $33 to $35 million a year. I mean, Tyreek Hill got $30
breaking
million.
news, Rick is Justin Jefferson's agent. Go ahead, Rick.
Tyreek Hill had the $30 to $30 million. So Justin Jefferson will be out there. He's not going to get in the open market. You remember, they can go ahead and exercise this 5th-year option. What they'll do, they can franchise him and they can franchise him again. So as much as he wants to get out there, they still control all the cards on Justin Jefferson. Hopefully they're able to get a long-term deal done.
And Jordan Addison played great when Justin Jefferson was down, but obviously Justin Jefferson plus Jordan Addison's a good thing. TJ Hawkins tore his ACL late. He'll come back. You want all three of those guys certainly back and healthy, especially if you're bringing Kirk Cousins back, which I think makes the most sense to be competitive in that division, Chris.
There are a few things we do really well at CBS Sports HQ. One of those things is winners and losers. A lot of times it makes sense. It's a slam dunk. Well, I mean, it's tough. We are tasking you without seeing anybody on the field yet, without even talking to any players yet. Give us winners and losers from day one at the Combine. Ryan, give us a winner.
I'm going to go with Michael Penix Jr. And the quarterbacks, to your point, Chris, haven't thrown yet, but he has announced that he will throw. And, Chris, if you know Rick Spielman a little bit, he is very interested in people competing no matter the stakes, how low or how high. And he'll be throwing to guys he has not thrown to. He'll be throwing in shorts and T-shirt. But we talked about it earlier. C.J. Stroud did it last year when Bryce Young didn't. And C.J. Stroud went on to have a great season, not necessarily because he threw, but he did give teams an opportunity to watch him play. So, Rick, my winner is Michael Penix Jr., who had a fantastic season, an okay Senior Bowl, and he'll have a chance to redeem himself one last time before the Pro Day in a few weeks from here.
Who's Rick's
My winner is... Yeah, well, I was waiting for you to ask me, Chris. I mean, there's a little bit of delay there. I know you're anticipating my winner, but it's going to be Bryce Young. And let me tell you why.
Yeah, how?
Dave Canales just got hired as a head coach. If you look at his track record with quarterbacks, look what he did with Russell Wilson. Look what he did with Geno Smith when he took over as the quarterbacks coach in Seattle in the year Geno Smith had. Look what he did with Baker Mayfield. He goes down, first-time offensive coordinator, first-time calling plays, resurrected Baker Mayfield's career. Imagine what he's going to do. And he was very impressive when we talked to him on the set today about finding out the things that Bryce Young does well and implementing that into the offense. And I think this was a huge win for Bryce Young having Dave Canales as the head coach.
And we said over the fall that it felt like that Frank Reich offense wasn't doing what Bryce Young did well at Alabama. So that's actually a good thing for Bryce, it feels like.
Yeah, and what Dave Canales says, it's our job to figure out what he does well and implement the offense around him. Expect a different Bryce Young next year.
All right, we also have losers from the guys. Rick, I'm going to let you go first because it's kind of, it's kind of the exact opposite of who Ryan picked as his winner.
Yeah, all the quarterbacks that decide not to throw, it just drives me berserko. You're healthy, you got an opportunity to throw. Who cares how accurate you are? A lot of times, evaluators, all 32 general managers, most of the head coaches are down here, all the decision makers, and you've seen these guys throwing shotgun most of the time in college. This gives you an opportunity to see how hard they've worked from the last time they played in college till now, dropping back, looking at their mechanics, looking at their footwork, doing play-action pass. A lot of the things that they're going to have to do in the NFL, they have an opportunity to show down here, not so much about the accuracy, but how the ball comes out of his hands, how smooth the release is. There are so many things you can get, but as agents get into these quarterbacks' ears, and now I'm hearing, and you said that all three of the top three aren't going to throw. Well, what if Jaden Daniels threw and the other two didn't? And what if he passed one of those quarterbacks based on what he did in the field? I don't think he'd pass up Caleb Williams, but I know you're not a fan of Drake May. Could he potentially?
I like Jaden a little better. Right, yeah.
And especially when you have an opportunity. And just take his example, right? Didn't play in the bowl game, which drives me crazy. I know Pete loves that. Didn't play down at the Senior Bowl.
Right.
Penix did both, and I understand that was in the playoffs. And it's not going to compete at the Combine. That's 3 X's in my box, and I just hate when these guys don't come down here and compete.
Hassel, I'm not afraid of much, but Berserko Spielman is something I do not like to see. So please, guys, take it to heart and work out of these combines to keep Berserko Spielman at bay. My loser, and we talked about him earlier today, just a moment ago, Russ Wilson. And by that I mean we don't know what his future is going to be. We don't know if his best football is behind him. Clearly things didn't work out last year with Sean Payton, and there was clear animosity on the sidelines at times when things weren't going well. And my thing, Rick, is that if you can't have success with Spielman, I struggle with that. If you can't have success with Sean Payton, and he got the most out of Jameis Winston when their time together in New Orleans, what do you have left if you're a quarterback who appears to be on the downside of a great career? So that's my concern. He's put his house up for the market for whatever that means in Denver, and I don't know where he plays next year. Is there a chance that he doesn't play next year?
No, he'll play somewhere.
All right, Rick Spielman and Ryan Wilson, they host the With the First Pick podcast. Getting some great content out of them at the NFL Combine this week in Indianapolis. Today was the very first day. Lots of talking with GMs and coaches, and then the players start getting measured and get out there on the field a little bit later in the week. Thursday, we get our first on-field drills.